Baby.
What's up, everyone? Toasty here. Today I'm going to be talking about a pretty advanced card game concept called the Sideboard and how to best use it. And this will mostly be from a Magic the Gathering context, since that's where my familiarity lies, as well as it being the most popular card game. So the Sideboard in general is, in Magic, a 15 card, I guess you call it an additional deck, in addition to the main, generally 60 card deck that you bring to a tournament. And so in games 2 and or 3, basically after you've played your first game, you can bring in cards from your sideboard or not in order to tune your deck better for the matchup that you're playing. So generally, if you're playing a very fair deck, you will get better in most matchups in games 2 and 3 because you'll be able to bring in fine-tuned answers for your opponent's strategies. Whereas if you're playing an unfair deck like a combo deck, your matchups will generally get much tougher after the sideboard because, again, your opponents will be bringing in cards that are finely tuned to beat you. And you also have to worry about not diluting your deck strategy too much in order to accommodate for the cards that your opponents brought in. So in terms of general sideboard strategy, there's a few approaches you can take depending on the size and scope of tournament you're going to. So the first one I want to discuss is if you're trying to beat an end boss or perhaps 2 or 3 local kind of champions that you know. Let's say you're playing a 4-round tournament and you know in order to win the tournament you're going to have to beat at least one of these people, maybe 2 or maybe 3 if it's a heck of a day. So in order to do that, let's say you have a 15 card sideboard, you might want to bring in 7 to 10 cards specifically tailored for what those people usually play. Of course, this does rely on them sticking to a deck or two, and you also have to know which cards are good against them, so you can certainly shoot yourself in the foot or guess wrong. But generally speaking, a lot of people are known for playing a deck, like a certain archetype of deck. So if you've been playing at a store for a while and the same people come out frequently, you're going to generally have a pretty good idea of what you need to do. So the second strategy with sideboarding is that, let's say, maybe there's an end boss or two, but you're not particularly concerned with them. You might have to beat them, but let's say maybe you're just as good as them or even slightly better. So then the strategy you want to go with is a general strategy of just fighting everyone in your local metagame. So you want to take a balanced approach, maybe bring in 2 to 4 cards per matchup, maybe 4 or 5 if there's one matchup you're just particularly worried about or is extremely popular at your local metagame. But again, generally you don't want to overcommit and just bring in, you want to bring in something just kind of for each matchup. Again, just a few cards. Just trimming some of your worst stuff for matchup and bringing in something that's either okay or maybe highly explosive depending on what your opponent's playing. And then the final strategy you can go to is if you're going to a big tournament like a Grand Prix or, let's say the Pro Tour or something along those lines, where you definitely just want general answers and or answers that are really good against the best deck and or like the second best deck. Because if you're going to a bigger tournament, especially in the later rounds, you're going to be playing the best of the best playing these decks, and they're going to be on the best decks or the very just well-known, most powerful decks in the format, because why innovate if you can just play the best decks? Of course, there will be some times you'll be wrong with this, and people will play more fringe strategies, but predicting those can be hard, and you definitely just want to get the most mileage in a safe fashion in most tournaments out of your sideboard cards. Another crazy thing you could do, I would never recommend this at a big tournament, but I actually did this at my Friday Night Modern tournament for Magic this past Friday, is that I was playing some casuals versus a guy, and he was playing a very unfair deck, Dredge in Magic's Modern format, for anyone familiar, which is a really strong graveyard deck. And basically, if you have hate cards for them, or cards that are specifically tailored to attack their graveyard, you can absolutely destroy them, but if you don't have any specific graveyard hate cards, you're going to have a really bad time, and you're going to really, really struggle versus them. So I played some casual matches with my standard deck against him, and it was very clear just I had almost no chance. And because in my local metagame, almost no one plays graveyard-based decks, I had tuned my sideboard to where I don't have very much graveyard hate. And as I mentioned previously, that therefore I was trying to attack, basically the 2 local end bosses by playing some untraditional sideboard cards that are particularly effective against them. So what I did in this tournament when after I played some test games versus this graveyard deck is actually got paired with this person round 1, of course, and I saw him take out the graveyard based Dredge deck. So knowing that the main deck that I had intended to enter the tournament with had very little anti-graveyard cards, I actually audibled and switched over to a completely different deck at the last second once I'd confirmed that he had pulled out the same sleeves that we were just testing with. So this rewarded me. I ended up going 3-1. I did beat the Dredge Graveyard deck. I did lose round 2 and then went 2-0 in the next 2 rounds. But yeah, so this is almost another next level of sideboard strategy where you can have more than a 15 card sideboard in a way where you can have a whole other deck. But again, once you do pick a deck for a tournament, you're certainly locked into that deck. I definitely do not advise being a scumbag and trying to switch your deck between rounds or something, which no one does, but don't do shady stuff like that. But yes, if you are willing to commit to a tournament with a deck that you maybe didn't intend to originally play, based on if you know round 1 you're going to have an abysmal matchup, that's certainly aggressive, but in this case, something effective for me strategy you can do. So let me know in the comments if this helped anyone out, if you've ever actually done this before in the past, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.